Hey there, everybody. Welcome to our Grey's Anatomy Season 17, Episode 3 review. I mean, inevitably, we have to talk a lot about this Episode 4 promo that aired tonight. Let's be honest. You don't say, and someone else is coming back, without just the brain having a reaction of just like, what?
And all of Twitter is abuzz. Everybody's talking about this. That really was the big drop.
It's crazy because, I mean, there are a lot of other things that, we could talk about from this episode, whether it be, what happened with Dr. Koracick or just the nature of the new interns trying to show up amidst all of this and Meredith's fate, but someone else is going to be there. We'll try to give some ideas. Yeah. Of course, we want to hear your theories on all of this in the comments as well.
For sure.
Before we do get into it, though, if you guys enjoy this video, be sure to subscribe. It is the best way to stay up to date on all things Grey's Anatomy, plus everything else we got going on at the channel.
All right, so before we get too far down the promo hole, we will talk about the episode a little bit. You are here for a review. We are going to give you a review. So we first have to talk about sort of the Meredith of it all. So she's in a bad way, and we kind of understood that that's where she was going last week when she collapsed, and then she saw Derek, and obviously Derek has passed away. And if she's seeing people who have passed away sort of like, hey, I'm waiting for you kind of thing, that's not good for what's happening to Meredith. That means that she's sort of like moving towards death is what I'm taking from this. So yeah, when this promo came up, I was like, okay, if she ends up seeing someone else who's passed away, then this really is where it's going. And during this episode, we had, her trying to get to him and being pulled back further on the beach, and he's being further away, and sort of that idea where it's like almost like you're not ready yet, but I'll be here when you are ready. And I mean, the whole thing is just, it's so nice to sort of see the two of them so close together and sort of have this like, I miss you, I know, and, the music and all of it, but we obviously don't want Meredith to die.
It is sweet and nostalgic and yet kind of dark at the same time because sort of what Derek represents in the end, but at the same time, I love the line where Derek sort of says that he'll be there when she's ready, and that sort of shows him still having that level of, love and care and understanding, or at least this manifestation of Derek that exists within Meredith's mind. And I think it's an important distinction to make. Like, this is not exactly the same Derek character. This is Derek as Meredith's subconscious is basically interpreting him.
Yeah, or unless there really is an afterlife and he really is just like, whenever you're ready, I'll be here. It doesn't have to be now, but, whenever it happens, it's you and me kind of thing. And there was sort of a lot of talk about her death and what that would mean, and that there was brought up Alex, who's the POA for her, and that conversation where it's like, can you pick someone else? He's not here anymore. He's across the country, and these decisions, they don't need to be made on the phone. And she eventually ended up talking to Richard, who is now her POA, is going to be able to sort of deal with these difficult decisions if they come up. But because she's talking about that and focused about that, and then she's seeing Derek, it does make me real nervous about who she's going to end up seeing next time.
We're just talking about Meredith, like herself here. I don't think Meredith's gonna die. I don't think I would want to believe that a lot of us probably feel that way in the end, because you can't have Grey's Anatomy without Meredith Grey.
No, and she has a lot to live for. Of course, she wants to be with Derek again someday, and someday it seems like, what the show is giving us, she will be with him again someday. But she also has family still here to fight for, and that's the Meredith that I know.
And that's the Meredith, I think, in the end, we're going to get. The part of this that is kind of weird to me is that they're not actually just saying the name of the virus and attaching it to Meredith. Because Patrick Dempsey, he went on Ellen this week, and he basically said that, Meredith has the virus, and I kind of felt like, and this has just always been my interpretation, the reason the writers decided to go this route is because they wanted to really make it clear to viewers how serious this is. And Meredith is basically a superhero. And if it can happen to Meredith, it can happen to anyone. And I just don't understand with that why you don't just sort of name it and give further clarity. It may seem obvious, but I think it does benefit the storytelling.
Yeah, I agree. I wish that they had really been just clear with it and just say it like they did with Tom, who, was sent home.
Poor Tom. Like, really.
I don't feel bad for Tom. Listen, Tom's been, listen, Tom, he just needs to go home.
Tom's
right now.
done some stuff. I'm aware of that. I'm not, listen, I have been at times a big Tom fan.
I know, and he's an interesting character, but right now, with everything that's going on with Owen and Teddy and Tom, and even when Tom was talking to Teddy, was like, I can't be around you, you broke my heart. Tom, like, you knew what was going on that whole time, that she was with someone else. You still made that decision. You broke your own heart. That's where I land on that.
Can we have a cleanup on aisle Tom, please? Like, Tom needs some help. Tom needs I don't know what Tom needs, but Tom, he can go home.
He can have, his 14-day timeout.
Yeah, which by the way, I do not think this is actually going to be great for Tom either, because that man is going to drive himself insane, locking himself somewhere for a couple of weeks.
For sure.
Okay, well, I know we'll have a lot of other things to get into here, but we're on the Meredith subject.
Well, before we get into that, we do need to talk about that one little Cormac moment, because it actually started to warm me up to him. I have not been on this train. I am still not on the train. I'm kind of hanging out at the station a little bit now, because that scene where he was FaceTiming her from outside the room was the first sort of real moment between them where I felt like it was a connection was happening, and it wasn't just kind of like, oh, here's this handsome new doctor who's very much like you, Meredith, so you guys might as well just be together. This felt more like he's there for her, he's there to, pump her up and make sure that she knows how valuable she is and how important she is and that she can get through this. I really like that moment. I'm warming up this much.
I'm warming up too. Ultimately, I don't even really know who I want Meredith to be with at this point. I want her to be happy, and she doesn't need to be with anybody to be happy. She's got her kids, she's got her family, she's got a lot of other people in her life. But I think what Cormac offers her is sort of just an element of someone who has been through a lot, someone who understands her pain. I think there's an empathy there with him that makes him a very interesting character for her. Clearly, there's also, a patience with him because he has tried and it hasn't worked, and it hasn't really changed sort of his perception of her at all.
Yeah, and he's asked her out a few times now, and she hasn't gone on any of his date requests. So, I mean, there's a patience there.
And I don't think her seeing Derek necessarily negates any other storyline that's going on with her romantically. I hope that's not like the interpretation the show wants us to have from it, because I think it's just, Meredith, she had that love, but she can have other loves as well. And we don't even know yet what Derek is going to say to her in the future, because apparently his time on the show isn't done yet.
Yeah, she doesn't need to be Frank Reagan from Blue Bloods, where she's just alone until she dies. It just doesn't have to be that way for her.
All right, now we do this. Okay,
Let's open the gates.
This is a difficult Pandora's box, because what are the rules of this world? I don't want to call it Death World, because that just sounds sad. Let's call it Beach World. What are the rules of Beach World? I think we can presume, because at first I'll admit I was thinking, oh, could it be Christina? But this is the part of my brain that just wants Sandra Oh back on Grey's Anatomy, because Christina ain't dead.
Yeah, and that's sort of where I'm going with it, that if she's seeing Derek, it feels like she's going to see other people who have passed away. And maybe I'm wrong, because it is sort of more of her subconscious. She can conjure anybody that she wants. But because she's conjured Derek, and because she's fighting for her life in a lot of ways, and it looks like she's going to be really fighting for her life next time, it feels like we're going to see someone else who's passed away.
I will give you guys the number one person on the list of people I want to see. Probably not going to happen. Lexi, Meredith's late sister. They had such an important relationship. The hospital is named in part after her. And
Yep.
I wish that this could happen. The problem I foresee with it, Kyler Lee's on Supergirl films in Vancouver. And normally this may not be that big of a deal, but I'm pretty sure when you go into Vancouver right now, you're required to quarantine for a period of time.
2 weeks.
That means that she would have to leave Supergirl, come down to Grey's Anatomy, go back up to Supergirl, quarantine for 2 more weeks.
Yep.
That is a lot for just a cameo.
It is a lot. So I'm not really sure, unless they're going to do something where they're not actually on any kind of set. I mean, there's beaches up in Vancouver as well. If they're keeping with the beach theme, maybe they can have something, down at the beach there and film just her and not have them close together and just sort of cut it back and forth and send the footage down there.
Now, you could go a different direction here and go with the other person the hospital is named after, Dr. Mark Sloan, also eventual casualty of the plane crash. And when he's not being the super creepy dad on Euphoria, Eric Dane can come back to Grey's Anatomy. He can enrich a lot of joy into people's hearts. I mean, the thing here, though, is that Euphoria has scarred me. I'm sorry, but
I feel like a lot of us feel that way about Euphoria. It is a dark, good show. Yeah, very good.
It really, really is. And it's just sort of a situation where I know, Meredith and Mark, and they had a relationship, and they did, communicate a lot, and obviously the connection between Mark and Lexi was so essential to the show. But it's just sort of like, if this is really a showcase of the most important people to Meredith ever, why would she see Mark over Lexi? Why would she see George over Lexi? Why would she see either one of them over Ellis, Meredith's mother? And they have had sporadic appearances from Ellis over time on this show this past little while. I don't think they're going to bring back her dad. She didn't really talk that much with her dad.
No.
I just think, I don't want to get my hopes up, because what happens here, we get disappointed, but they also brought back Patrick Dempsey.
I was about to say, they've brought back Derek, and even though there's been no sort of hug or kiss or anything like that, I feel like they're going to have some payoff with this.
I hope so. I hope
so. Or I feel like Grey's Anatomy fans would be pissed. Even looking at Twitter tonight, there was a lot of people that were just like, just bring them together already. We saw this beach thing last week. We're seeing it again this week. Just give us the hug, give us the kiss, give us the something. And I get that. But I'm a person who's okay with a slow ride as long as there's payoff.
They put out the photo of the two of them together, and they're together in the photo. I think
not enough payoff.
Well, if she gets with them, that means she's dead. That's the problem. They have put us in a horrible position here with Meredith, but I'm glad we have something else to look forward to. I still say Lexi is the one that makes the most sense. It's the one I would be the most excited about. There's the most need for closure there.
Yeah, and maybe they're going to be able to do something like that and just film her up in Vancouver.
Maybe, and then Meredith could be like, why are you working for the DEO now, trying to stop alien threats all over the city? Right. But it's better than being the creepy dad from Euphoria. But let us move on to everything else. We got a lot of shirtless Link in this episode. I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah, I'm all right with that. I mean, it was a funny storyline, sort of what was going on with this other guy's hand and then coming home. And it was also really interesting just to see what Link went through to come home, to be like, I showered at the hospital, but, I also want to make sure that I'm out here cleaning off, and also I'm going to stay away from you, as much as I can for the next however long. That it really is if you go to the hospital, you are really at risk of bringing stuff home and infecting the whole family, no matter how careful you are. I mean, look at Tom. Tom is very careful, and he still ended up with COVID. It's actually really crazy that that's the way that it works.
it's crazy that this is sort of how the world is working at this point, and we're all kind of in this. And I do appreciate Grace continuing to send as much of a positive message as possible through all this about staying safe and encouraging people to do whatever they can.
Yep.
I just feel like these first three episodes really, I think it has been bleak at times. I think they did a good job, especially in this episode, of finding little ways to liven things up here and there, as hard as it can be. I even like little things like, Owen being the one who told Koracick to go home, and Koracick thinking it's a prank at first. Like, the whole situation is kind of sad, but it's like, okay, that is the relationship that has been planted here.
And it was really nice to see the case of the week about the woman that was having the baby that was implanted into the liver. They were even saying it. We need to take the positive moments where we can. And with this show, they are going to be continuing to show us the virus and what is going on with the health crisis. This is one of the biggest medical dramas on TV. It has been on the air for 17 seasons. So it's going to continue on with this. As dark and bleak as it is, the show is trying to give us moments where we're gonna have a smile.
Are you surprised that they didn't really address Jackson and Joe all that much in this episode? Because
No.
it was such a big thing in the premiere. I don't think we needed to have more of it. I thought that they would have at least mentioned it a little bit longer than they did.
I think if they had actually gotten together and hooked up, then it would have been sort of something that would go on into maybe other things, maybe more hookups, maybe just awkwardness, but nothing ended up happening. Instead, it turned into still their friendship where, she's crying in his mouth and he's there to help her through some of that stuff. And that was more what was needed. So I think it moved them past the awkwardness of it all because they ended up being there as friends at the end.
I liked a lot of this episode. It was nice to get a few Derek moments. It wasn't really a lot of it, but I come out of it sort of thinking, how much really happened in this episode? Like, how much further are we from where we were in the premiere? Doesn't feel like, other than, Koracick getting this diagnosis and, seeing Meredith struggle, I don't think we really, pushed things so far ahead.
No, I mean, they really did show us how much trouble Meredith is in trying to deal with this crisis that's going on with herself, with everything around her. She can't stop working. She just won't stop to give herself sort of the rest that she needs to get through this.
Well, we're going to have a new episode in 2 weeks, and yes, that stinks, but also remember this. This is making us wait till January. It could be worse.
Also, it's Thanksgiving. We don't need to have Grey's Anatomy on Thanksgiving. They're a strong show, but nothing can compete with Thanksgiving. So You guys take the break.
We don't need to watch Weber cut people up while we're cutting up the turkey.
That's right.
We're good, but okay, we got to get your theories. Who is visiting Meredith in Beach World? Let us know. Let us know what about. It's better than Death World. And if you guys like this video, subscribe, give us a like, support us further. Check those links to the store, our Patreon, and we'll see you here next time.